The antagonist is pretty messed up in the head. So the protagonist is attempting to communicate, and as we know, communicating to another human being is probably the hardest thing in the world to do, especially when it comes to the truth. So I don't think the protagonist wins in the end.
If they didn't know you then, what makes you think they know you now? This guy's been tales.
Welcome to the pilot episode of Quick to Listen, a podcast dedicated to spiritual and philosophical analyses of contemporary music. We are listening today to MACHINA, an uncompromising, off-putting, bonkers, densely introspective hard rock monolith that was released to much displeasure by the Smashing Pumpkins in 2000. On the surface, MACHINA is basically a concept album like David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, in which Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins assume an alter ego, Glass and the Machines of God. That concept is just the starting point, though, a premise enabling MACHINA's unsettling torrent of examinations, lamentations, and demonstrations of the insecurity of the self and the ultimate unknowability of others. I believe the MACHINA concept allowed Corgan to go deeper than he ever would in his career, really to existentially horrifying places. With a little help from Lennon, Carl Gustav Jung, and some of today's leading writers on narcissistic personality disorder, we'll journey to the center of the record. If you want to know the metaphysics of the Smashing Pumpkins, it's in there.
C.G. Jung. He says that this for a Westerner may be a very dangerous thing indeed, because just exactly what the Westerner may need to do is to allow free rein to his wandering thoughts and his imagination and his fantasy, because it's only in this way that he can get in touch with his unconscious, and that his unconscious will not leave him in peace until he gets in touch with it.
Much like how MACHINA itself treats the world, we're going to begin at the surface. So, when I say MACHINA, I'm referring to two releases, MACHINA, The Machines of God, put out by Virgin on Leap Day of 2000, and MACHINA 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music, which was self-released by the band later that year in the format of a double vinyl LP and 3 vinyl EPs. Bypassing the record label, the group gave 25 copies of the album directly to longtime supporters, with instructions to disseminate it for free on the internet. MACHINA was written as a monster double album, like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, but Virgin balked at the size, hence the splitting up of the songs in the renegade direct release of MACHINA 2. The monumental 40-song scale of the MACHINA project is integral to its aesthetic. When Virgin broke up the album, or when fans assemble a streamlined playlist of the 10 best tracks, they're missing the point and undermining the ability of the record to build its purgatorial, airless, nightmarish world. Incidentally, as I've mentioned, MACHINA was presented as
a concept album in which there's a story
told from the perspective of a, quote, rock star gone mad, named Glass, the other dramatis personae being his band, called the Machines of God, his unnamed love interest, and his fans, dubbed the Ghost Children. The Smashing Pumpkins solicited fans to write in with their attempts to assemble a story, to solve the, quote, MACHINA mystery, but after reading them, Corgan insisted,
"No one's got it right yet."
I have my own rather counterintuitive solution, which I'll give at the end of this podcast. Here's a hint. It has to do with the inherent unsolvability of the mystery. I think MACHINA is Corgan's most personal record, but its premise suggests Ziggy Stardust with all the camp, theatricality, and homo-ironicization that implies. And David Bowie is a sure influence on Corgan for his ability to deconstruct the self through the adoption of different clearly false selves. The Man Who Fell to Earth, the blind, book-effacing heathen. In a 2009 mission statement regarding the future direction of the Pumpkins, Corgan placed himself in the Bowie school. Quote, "I don't think there is anything inauthentic about my play acting within those created personas. Zero, the white spider, the sad guy, the vampire, etc." End quote. and if you still have doubts, Corgan has covered 9 different Bowie songs live. Additionally, Corgan served as creative consultant early in the writing of Marilyn Manson's '98 Glam concept album, in which the band became Omega and the Mechanical Animals. Corgan's advice: this is definitely the right direction, but if you're gonna do this, go all the way with it. Don't just hint at it. 2 years after Manson's album, Corgan got to show what going all the way with Ziggy Stardust meant to him. In 5 years, the first Ziggy Stardust track, we hear from a weeping newsman that
was really dying.
In blue skies bring tears, glass implores. The end of the world tone much more seriously infuses Machina than it does Ziggy Stardust. It seems that Ziggy Stardust saves the day. The kids kill the man and he kills himself, but he fulfills a messianic project in doing that, and it's implied that the world has averted Armageddon. Not so in Machina. In 2009, Corgan spoke with comparative religion scholar and Jungian psychotherapist Morgan Stebbins about the significance of apocalyptic imagery.
Well, I for one believe we're sort of in a energetic form of the end times. I don't believe we're actually headed towards the apocalypse, but you can make that case. You know, most other people thought we were living in the end times, but they were wrong. We actually are living in the end times. The good news is it means it's the end. It is the storm that needs to take place.
And the thing about the end times is, mythologically speaking, the people that experience something as the end time get taken down to fundamentals. They get taken down to what's essential. And it means the time is now. If it's the end time, then the time to be who you're meant to be is right now.
Well, it's always right now.
It's always right now.
Machina is self-consciously the Smashing Pumpkins' final album. Corgan is forcing a resolution, forcing himself to confront his monsters, and there are a lot of them. His childhood aside, which we'll mention later, he separated from his wife in 1995. His mother died in December 96. He divorced his wife in 97. Corgan wrote these songs from 98 to 99. He entered therapy around this time, and he got sober in the year 2000 or 2001. LSD, ecstasy, speed but not cocaine, edible pot, and pills, likely opiates, have been mentioned. He knew that drummer Jimmy Chamberlain, who left the Pumpkins in 96 after serious heroin issues, would only be returning for one final Pumpkins album, so he was confronting the end of his career and his public image as he had known it. There was a lot to process, a lot of shadows to confront. Corgan with Morgan Stebbins again.
I love do you know the author Robert A. Johnson? I think he's a fantastic visionary, and one thing I like about his writing is he talks about how we must all deal with our shadow, and the way to deal with shadow is through ritual and through imagination, but what most people do is they deal with their shadow through sex, drugs, rock and roll. They live it out, and he says,
Right.
It's just the psyche needs to be dealt with, and it can be done in a non-destructive way.
Right. The shadow is something we have to confront in ourselves.
The point is, to me as an artist, is I'm willing to do this again and again and again. I'm willing to take that ride, and I'm willing to take the fish on. And sometimes the fish is me.
Spiritually speaking, Machina is less a descendant of the effusive Ziggy Stardust and more a descendant of the spare, somber, penetrating John Lennon plastic Ono Band, the record the Beatle made well in Primal Scream Therapy.
I'll say it again. God is a concept by which we measure our pain. Yeah, pain. Yeah.
Lennon was the first rock star to attempt to bear on vinyl his fears, his doubts, and his inner wounded child. Plastic Ono Band is sonically spare, but it's lyrically radical in its willingness to be ugly and petty to disillusion. On it, Lennon famously said not only that he didn't believe in Jesus, but much more shockingly at the time,
I don't believe in Beatles. Just believe in me. Yoko and me. That's reality.
Lennon had lived for years as a Beatle in the eyes of the world, and he was ready to shatter that image. Plastic Ono Band is a desperate, earnest journey to get back in touch with reality. He may not know where it lies, but he's willing to tear down falsehood after falsehood to get closer. A Ziggy Stardustian desire for grand myth-building, and that apocalyptical primal scream readiness to tear down every concept, even God. These exist in tension on Machina, but the disillusionment wins the day. If we want to know who Corgan's Glass character is, we ought to start with his eponymous theme.
Shattering fast on glass, I'm shattering fast on glass, I'm shattering glass, I'm shattering fast on glass.
Oh, he's shattering when we meet him. That's what he asserts, that and alternatingly paradoxically, his name. Which shard of glass would we look at to know him? Are we what everybody knows us to be, our public face?
Everybody knows I'm fast, I'm shattering glass.
If everybody knows you to be something, are you then that something? And fast is an action, a motion-blurred impression. It doesn't get at the thing being fast.
Won't you please, won't you know what I do?
He wants to be loved, but what he has done is not who he is, and to be worshipped is not even to be known. People worship gods all the time who don't even exist. Lest there's doubt about how Glass feels about this. It's an interesting couplet. We can betray something to which we are expected to owe loyalty. And Glass is a rocker, like Corgan, who at the time had just decided to retire the Pumpkins. The feeling of having betrayed something is of being punished, excluded from that part of oneself. A rapport, even an internal one, is broken. A rapport based on the tacit assumptions about the predictability of one's behavior. But if that behavior changes... Glass is not just alone, socially, laying by the pool, saying hold all the calls. He's alone in his soul. The drama of the album is in this question, expressed 2 songs later. Machina knows that the image of oneself is not who one is.
She can hear glass calling. Or is it someone that looks like you?
David Bowie demonstrated that idea by living publicly as Ziggy Stardust for a couple of years and then shattering the character on stage.
Not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do. Thank you.
John Lennon on the aforementioned song God could gently end the illusion with a couple of lines.
I was the walrus, but now I'm John.
Billy Corgan, probably because of quirks in his own psychology, cannot just say, "Glass has shattered, I am Billy." It presents an existential crisis, one he tackles with great courage. We are now going to travel to the heart of Glass and the Ghost Children, the 10-minute centerpiece of Machina 1. It has been played in concert 198 times at this moment, more than any song from the record aside from the big single, Stand Inside Your Love, despite not being catchy and not having a satisfying climactic arc that would get people clapping. What an unusual spiritual orientation to the center of the earth. Pink Floyd set the controls for the heart of the sun. David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust is waiting in the sky, as is, by the way, God and all of Abrahamic cosmology. But the center of the earth, a line sung twice, is as far from God as one could be, yet it seems to be his will. The mythical musician Orpheus, into hell and back, he hopes. On Machina, there is a recurring dynamic of going deep and inwards only to come up with unsettling new uncertainties. On Real Love, it's go down the stairs into the dark again, then later, less willingly, fall down the stairs. On Blue Skies Bring Tears, it's descend the darkened stairways. In The Poetics of Space, Jung-influenced French philosopher Gaston Bachelard explored the meaning of the imagery of intimate places. He says this of the cellar. It is first and foremost the dark entity of the house, the one that partakes of subterranean forces. When we dream there, we are in harmony with the irrationality of the depths. The impassioned inhabitant digs and redigs, making its very depth active. The starting point of philosophy, it's been said, lies in the contemplation of universal experience. Yet Corgan's God voice, a quote, imploding voice, impels him inwards, which is away even from God. Carl Jung believed in a collective unconscious that united all of mankind, a deep sea of shared fears, memories, and inclinations. It's analogous to the physical body. We all wear different clothes, have different faces and voices, but underneath, you go deeper and our musculature, bones, and internal organs are really similar. Jung believed there was an as-yet not understood force called synchronicity, an acausal connecting principle that could synchronize individuals at the deepest psychological level with each other and with the outside physical world. For example, Jung believed that a series of his own dreams in 1913 and 1914 about an expanding killing frost foresaw the outbreak of World War I. Synchronicity is a term Billy Corgan has used, including in a Facebook reply to me. There's hope for the spiritual spelunker to ultimately connect with others. In other words, the inwardness of this album does not disqualify it from having universal concerns, does not render it emo. The middle section enters abruptly, the seething, wormy electric guitars sucking backwards into an abyss of muted piano. It's one of only 3 points on the record when the beat stops. The consciousness has imploded deeper. We hear Corgan in a tape-recorded therapy session. It's uncomfortably intimate. I will note here that Machina's lyrical idée fixe is of being alone in one's head. God is the framework of our reality, the premise, the mover, the creator. He can be trusted. But, the tape warping, Corgan begins to doubt that he's ever heard the voice of God, which he equates with his intuition. He doubts his own identity.
So all my kind of demagoguery in my life about me thinking that my life has importance might be thinking that my life has importance, my thought of it on the fact that I believe that I'm following my intuition, which in and of itself may be completely false.
So then I started freaking out, thinking of itself may be completely false. And again, this totally insane creature who believes that he's acting upon kind of heavenly intuition, but meanwhile he's totally rampant.
A musical appreciation moment about this piano section. Note how the part plays off of the words, how it creeps higher at maybe I'm insane.
And I started thinking, what if I'm insane?
How it stalls and abruptly goes lower at the second mention of insane.
But maybe I'm completely, so all my...
The word itself is cut off. Then, with me thinking that my life has importance, the piano enters into a sad, blasted-out ghost of the melancholy theme.
Thinking that my life has importance might be thinking that my life has importance, my thought of it.
Each sits on a chord for 4 beats, then comes an even, syncopated 5 or 6 note descending pattern. Let me quote them again, mashed up.
That my life has importance might
be thinking that my life has importance, my thought of it.
First, the Pumpkins have already quoted this theme twice already within the Melancholy album, at the end of Through the Eyes of Ruby and at the end of Farewell and Good Night. Second, Machina was originally going to be a double album, which would have invited comparisons to Melancholy. Third, it happens during this therapy break, which is instrumentally anomalous and also virtually breaks the fourth wall and would be the one moment on Machina when Machina gets to comment on itself. Fourth, there is another version of the piano piece on a Machina 2 EP. It doesn't contain Billy Corgan talking about how he was deluded into believing that his life had importance, and that version does not quote the Melancholy theme. Note the implosion that quoting suggests, from the theme proudly heralding a 28-track, 8 million selling record, to being hidden inside this voyeuristic, disillusioned therapy artifact. On Melancholy, the theme is used to suggest harmony and completeness. It ties the end of the nighttime disc to the beginning of the daytime disc. But here, it's buried, its tape warped and beaten, and as a section it completely disturbs the song. Glass is disillusioned, and he's willing to disillusion us as well. It's really a profound question asked there in Dross, but in that song Corgan, from the safety of the swaggering Glass persona, dismisses the issue by slamming another person, some piece of human dross. Does anyone want to be you? Hey, at least I'm better than you. But swagger, real or self-satirical, can't continue over 40 songs. The epic scope of the project makes the identity of Glass into an object of songwriting meditation and denies Corgan easy answers. What is it to be true as we venture inwards, unmoored from the objectivity that God, that unifying observer of reality with the everlasting gaze, provides, once the sentimental sway stops? On Machina's most introspective numbers, Corgan can't seem to locate himself, the true seat of his identity, or even of his consciousness. Now he is outside of himself.
Last night I turned around and thought I saw myself turn.
Now he is somewhere deep and hidden within himself. Eastern spiritual teachers claim that enlightenment is nothing but the realization that there is no self.
And I started thinking maybe this was the cause of all the negativity against me. And I started thinking maybe this was the cause of all the negativity against
YouTube's Leo Gura says,
it means that life is totally impersonal. There's nothing personal about life, which means that everything that you take personally about your life is an illusion, and that in fact life is completely neutral and completely impersonal. Even your very body is impersonal. Even your thoughts, your very thoughts about you are impersonal. The other thing that spiritual enlightenment means is that all thoughts and all beliefs, no matter whether they're religious, spiritual, scientific, or everyday beliefs,
My thought of it.
all of them are just stories. They're not reality, and they're not truth-telling. They're just stories. They're stories about reality, but not reality itself. And they don't carry truth about reality, even though we believe that they do.
just when you think Glass and the Ghost Children might end on a beautiful cosmic shoreline, Glass having been liberated from his ego, having seen 1,000 fractions, having seen everything, we get this off-putting, icky refrain.
As she counted the spiders as they crawled up inside her. As she
What is up with these white spiders? In 1961, Ingmar Bergman released a film called Through a Glass Darkly. The protagonist, Karen, goes slowly mad while on an island with family. It's been 10 years since I've seen it, but with the help of Wikipedia, I will summarize the climactic scene. The young woman, Karen, becomes fixated on a crack in the wall out of which emerges a spider. The ambulance, a helicopter, flies by the window, making a lot of noise and shaking the door open. Karen moves towards the door eagerly, but then she runs from it, terrified, and goes into a frenzy of panic. She vanishes and, reappearing in a frenzy, is sedated. When she stands, she tells them of God, an evil-faced spider who tried to penetrate her. She looked into God's eyes, and they were cold and calm. And when God failed to penetrate her, he retreated onto the wall. "I have seen God," she announces. God, glass, and spiders, all in one film, all over this album. God as a cold, unknowable spider, we a different species and genus from him entirely. Confirmation of the aloneness of mankind and of each man. Does a spider god crawling up a woman's leg take the time in his day to answer the prayers of a soft, abused human boy? This next segment is difficult for me because it guarantees that I will never get to hang out with Billy Corgan. I think he is most likely a narcissist. I think that the language of narcissistic personality disorder provides a very useful framework with which to discuss the quirks of his personality, at least. What is it? Narcissism is not having a nice smile and a healthy pride. For example, when I hear Corgan say that he deserves to be in the conversation of the great writers of our time, I don't hear a deluded person. I actually agree with him. No, NPD is a kind of detached and grandiose orientation towards others that can develop as a coping mechanism in a child who's been subjected to abuses and deprivations. In Disarming the Narcissist, Wendy Behary says that a narcissist exhibits 10 of these 13 traits most of the time. I'm not trying to build a case here, but see if this squares with what you know of Corgan's public behavior. Self-absorbed, entitled, demeaning, demanding, distrustful, perfectionistic, approval-seeking, unempathetic, unremorseful, compulsive, addictive, emotionally detached. How does this constellation of traits come about? Billy Corgan has been quite open about the physical abuse and emotional betrayals he suffered as a child, covering it in his live journal confessions, for example. He grew up with a drug-using, selfish musician father and a physically abusive stepmother. Writing of his childhood in Chicago in 2005, but in the present tense, quote, "I have learned the fine art now of judging what is expected of me when I am being beat. It takes a keen ear to detect if the desired result is one of the following: submission, capitulation, confession, or negation. Sometimes when I am being beaten down, the desired result appears to be tears, a bleating, 'No more, no more,' until the monster is satisfied. In stark opposition, sometimes the desired result appears to be to stop me crying until a numb pall falls over the scene. As she beats me, she repeats over and over again, 'Stop crying, you piece of shit,' and the formula reads that once you do, the beating will stop. I learned the fine art of giving her whatever she desires, if only to feel that I am the one ultimately in control."
Well, what do you think about confronting the monster? I mean, it comes up often in the form of another person.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I struggle. Here's what I've struggled with most of my life. Not the obvious monsters. Those are easy.
Yeah.
Those are real easy. The guy with the whiskey bottle. Okay, that's easy. It's the one that seems to be giving you what you want and doesn't give you what you need.
From Disarming the Narcissist, quote, "Once upon a time, this competitive braggart was simply a little child who had wants, needs, and feelings, just like every child who enters the world. What could have led that child down a path toward an assumed rightful placement on center stage beneath the spotlight of specialness? These children are often criticized by one parent and made to feel that whatever they do is never really good enough. They may then be doted on, overprotected, or used as a surrogate spouse by the other parent. They may be compliant with their parents' demands and expectations as a means of receiving their limited attention and dodging criticism and shame.
You're gonna walk so far. You're gonna wonder who you are.
In response to this profound emotional deprivation, manipulation and control, and the stifling of his previous and vulnerable little self, the child develops an approach to life characterized by such principles as, I will need no one is to be trusted, I will take care of myself, or I'll show them.
It seems like the hardest thing is then to think, all right, so it's one thing just to get this monster out of your life. That's always a little victory. Then the question is,
Can you get the monster out of your head?
I guess.
Quote, so when I am beat now, if the desire appears to be to make me cry, I learn a sort of fake sob dramatized to heighten the necessary effect. She doesn't seem to notice the difference between the fake version and the real deal, so this passes muster, and therefore I never need to cry at all. His birth mother, whom he considered his real mother, lived in the neighborhood, but he rarely saw her, heightening the sense of rejection. Quote, my real mother hovers in the distance, over where the bright lights of the city bounce off the clouds at night. But she cannot help me now, not in this place of bombed-out souls.
The sun is shining on me, impatient in love and aching to be.
The anxiety of the past year since moving in with my father and my stepmother starts to add up, causing a nervousness in me that will not quit. I feel often that I cannot breathe, so suffocated am I by the oppressive nature of the household. My father seems to do drugs more regularly now. At night, the nightmares start to come, the worst kinds of demons chasing me through black forests. I begin having a series of dreams where I am lost in a concrete-only world of no other people. I still have this dream occasionally, but for 20 years, almost weekly. That concrete-only world of no other people sounds just like the world of MACHINA to me, quote, a wasteland of shattered souls. Let's return to the different personae that Corgan has described for himself. Zero, the white spider, the sad guy, the vampire. They don't really reflect much, quote, diversity and complexity, as he has claimed. They point in one direction. Sam Vaknin, a recognized authority on NPD and a diagnosed narcissist himself, has written an article called The Narcissist as Vampire or Machine. Quote, the narcissist is often described by others as robotic, machine-like, inhuman, emotionless, android, vampire, alien, automatic, artificial, and so on. People are deterred by the narcissist's emotional absence. Corgan, in the same blog post on his creative personae, described himself, this is himself, not the characters, as part alien, part human, part robot, part star-crossed lover, and part mercury-filled. Vaknin, the narcissist, describes his own inner world. I always think of myself as a machine. I measure things. I compare performance. I'm acutely aware of time and how it is utilized. There is a meter in my head. It ticks and talks, a metronome of self-reproach and grandiose assertions. I talk to myself in the third-person singular. Corgan again, quote, I would point very gently to the diversity and complexity of my artistic work to give you some sense of who Billy Corgan really is. That is a joking third person, by the way, end quote. Vaknin, why are narcissists not prone to suicide? Simple, they died a long time ago. MACHINA continually portrays Glass / the White Spider / Billy Corgan as riding the threshold of death, or as being suspended in a weird nether realm between life and death. I of the Mourning, that's the letter I, Mourning. He is characterized by mourning, or he comes from it. We'll explore this fifth example in more depth, as it portrays with unusually everyday imagery how the protagonist of Machina feels separate from the mainstream of the living. He wants to empathize, to peer into private worlds of others, but the scene is desolate. He retreats to his home, his own private world. There's death, always at the edge of the frame. This song is unusual in that he goes not down into the basement, but up into the attic with the stars. Carl Jung's Modern Man in Search of a Soul, quote, "Here the conscious acts like a man who, hearing a suspicious noise in the cellar, hurries to the attic, and, finding no burglars there, decides, consequently, that the noise was pure imagination." Gaston Bachelard expands, quote, "Fear in the attic and fear in the cellar. Instead of facing the cellar, the unconscious, Jung's prudent man seeks alibis for his courage in the attic. In the attic, rats and mice can make considerable noise, but let the master of the house arrive unexpectedly, and they return to the silence of their holes. When we dream of the heights, we are in the rational zone of intellectualized projects." Glass, for this song, flees the cellar of his shattering unconscious for the attic. He knows one way to affirm himself, by resuming the rock star pose. By the way, one of the tours to support Machina was called Resume the Pose. The radio plays his favorite song, maybe one of his own, or a song by another member of the rock pantheon to which this utterly isolated man aspires. Hope for direct connection has faded. Everything is mediated. Music through the radio, kind words through pen and paper, space and time, and the stars are out surreally while he remains beneath the attic roof. While his tears come, a new hope enters, quote, "to bring the past alive." He may be making the toast alone, but he's survived. It's hopeful for Machina, yes, but the undead, half-alive quality persists, fed by isolation. Repeating the narcissist's pattern, he affirms his resiliency and self-sufficiency, knowing that he still carries the strength to go out there with his guitars, to maybe communicate through the larger-than-life medium of the radio, to maybe inspire fresh fan letters. That, not real connection, is what he hopes for in the intellectualized attic, which is why at the end the song sounds more agonized than ever. He suspects there's something off with his approach to life. He has just survived, renewed his membership to purgatory. Nothing has changed. He'll be back in the cellar soon enough.
One sort of interesting criticism that I've seen recently about the songs that I'm writing is people say, the songs don't seem as personal as they used to, and they don't seem as dramatic or emotional. And what I would say about a song like this is, I agree, but that's because I feel colder in my life. Everything that's happened to me in my life has made me feel more distant from my feelings. So we were sitting out by the beach, and I'm playing guitar, and I started playing the riff, and I started singing like, the bullshit lyrics. Try to hold on, try to hold on. And my girlfriend turned to me and said, "Must every song you write be so sad?" And I said, "No, it's not try to hold on. It's like, go ahead and try to hold on to me." If you know what I mean. Good luck, that's what I meant. It's more of a good luck. Good luck at trying to hold on to me. Or anybody, for that matter, because as we all know, it's impossible to hold on to anybody.
The first line of Try, 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 the song Corgan was introducing in that clip, goes,
What's our mission? Do we know? We'll never listen for too long. We'll be undone.
In light of Corgan's comments, it would seem that he sees, at least in these lyrics,
Which I think roughly approximate the way that I normally feel.
his mission as being one for which his partner can't come along. Others threaten to hold him under. It's explicit in Home. The quote, truth is that he must live this life alone. Three songs mention ways in which the telephone can fail to lead to communication. You can wait for a call, you can hold all the calls, you can live behind a wall of caller ID. No songs mention talking on the phone with another human. One song mentions directly hearing the voice of God. Corgan's open-ended spiritual mission, to the center of the earth or anywhere God decides, doesn't allow for others. The social realm is consistently portrayed as being artificial. Vanity equates the deadly sin with a woman who is both naked and behind a tear-streaked shield. It concludes that vanity must die.
In relationship, the difficulty is at what point is projection a good thing and a bad thing?
Right.
If I'm not attracted to you, well, I'm not going to be with you. Like, I get these speeches from girls sometimes, like, "Oh, you just don't like me for who I am." And I'm like, well, if I was 457 pounds, would you be with me? The answer is no.
Right.
So on some level, I'm embodying a projection. Maybe I remind them of dad or mom or whatever. And same with
Right. And the question is, how do those projections then lead us to a new life, to a deeper soul experience?
in my experience in life, the inner voice, soul, however you want to understand a being, wants confirmation that they're recognized. And so in my estimation, you have to fight through the projections. In addressing the comment I made about would you love me if I was 457 pounds, what I'm speaking to is not the judgment, but going to the energy of the illusion of a relationship built on things that are projected. Like, I only go out with blondes, or I only go out with brunettes, or something like that. When you're in a love relationship, or even if you're in a business partnership, the shadow of the relationship is those unspoken, implied things that are assumed. And what I like to do is I like to confront them, because what I want to do is I want to get past them so that we're not scared. Right?
The album's big, gushy love song, Let Me Give the World to You, immediately cops to insincerity. The first line is last chance to make believe. Only after that call for make believe do the big promises come.
Now I wouldn't change a thing. No.
The woman again embodies falsity. She wears a new skin. Train wrecks hide underneath her umbrella. When the song climaxes, it's not with him looking into her eyes, but focusing on the distance between them.
Now I wouldn't change a thing about the way you are. The distance here is so far.
How do people interact when they do interact? Over and over again on Machina, one person contains another. Glass migrates under her translucent skin in one song, the man seemingly transmuted into an injectable drug. The rock star seems to contain his fans, the ghost children.
The ghost children would be some combination of our audience, which would be you.
As we've mentioned earlier, in two songs, Spiders, which have been conflated both with God and with Corgan, crawl inside of a woman. In Blue Skies Bring Tears, quote,
Take me inside your body.
And a few seconds later,
You are the sweetest flowers
him and her, she and him. This dynamic is even in the MTV single, if more tactfully. Who wouldn't stand inside your love? In it, he wraps his wire around her heart. So he is inside her love and is wrapped via the characteristically icy, borderline sadomasochistic image of a wire around her. What does it mean? From Disarming the Narcissist, quote, with little tolerance for his simple longing for love and connection, and little confidence in the possibility of achieving love and connection, the narcissist reaches for grand recognition and approval in a quest to affirm his prominently declared emotional independence. Aside from the primary metaphor of humans containing each other, we also have nods in the artwork to humans as marionettes, and one lyrical reference to hypnosis. Everything but normal adult reciprocity. But remember that Corgan isn't trying to appear normal on Machina, he's fearlessly rendering his Jungian shadow. Note first the nightmarish sorrow of laying this line under the repeated mantra, blue skies bring tears, as if it explains why. Note also the skill in his phrasing, pausing after the word given, as if the given is about to explain why he asks for nothing. I ask for nothing, given that I have been given nothing. In return, I ask for nothing, given that I have been given nothing. In return, I ask for nothing. It suggests a mobius strip of deprivation and a childhood origin of his disbelief and reciprocity. Right here is the plainest example of Machina alienating the listener by design, of demonstrating that Glass is alone by dividing us from him. Well, he provides some of his most revealing lyrics, a second catatonic voice enters, intoning blue skies bring tears, a freaky little koan, since the sky is where God lives. That second voice crescendos for over 2 minutes, subsuming the first more human voice, becoming grotesquely overdriven. We are pushed away. Immanuel Kant wrote that there are two distinct realms to existence, phenomena and noumena, and that it was crucial in seeking wisdom to distinguish between them. Phenomena are what we can observe, the glow of your computer screen, the warmth of your own skin, the sound of my voice. The sciences and the way we psychologically process our experiences, they only give us access to phenomena. Noumena is the underlying reality, metaphysics, not physics. We cannot have sensory access to noumena. We can only arrive at it indirectly, through a sound philosophical model. By tearing down and questioning identity at every turn on Machina, Billy Corgan, or Glass, comes to admit, I can't prove to myself what reality is. At best I can allow a daydream. The love is real, but we cannot know the love object. We have come to the metaphysics of Machina. Our emotional extremes, our professions of love, our desire for wisdom will not bring us closer to noumena. It follows that if one can choose one's beliefs, one can, in a sense, create one's own reality. That looks a lot like madness. Remember that this is the story according to the press release of a rock star gone mad. All is within. All are scared of this knowledge. The world of Machina is one sustained in sorrow. There is no Christian deliverance offered. But if one can dream, the world can become a lot prettier. We dream a soft-focused sunset. On With Every Light, Corgan addresses his deceased mother. The immediate implication is that our narrator believes in an afterlife, but he is self-conscious of it being a belief of his.
I was very disappointed you didn't pick the meaning of the song, and I started to really obsess on that in the middle of it. That's not.
Innocence is a sense. Corgan is crafty there, spelling the title. Innosense. The world is not fallen or redeemed. Innocence is not an objective quality. It's a sense. It exists within oneself. Quote, knowing is its own answer. God, if he exists, would permit you any dream. That last line is a rare allusion to Christianity. Any way you choose, the sun, S-U-N, and the sun, S-O-N, are true. The thought may have occurred to you, what if there is a single observer uniting the universe in his perception of phenomena? Let's call him God. That would stabilize matters, allow for more agreements between people. This is a popular interpretation of quantum physics right now. Some people claim that because the behavior of matter is subject to the observer effect, yet the laws of physics appear to be consistently holding together, there must be one observer. Corgan has his doubts.
A lot of people don't want to take someone else's word for some experience. People want it themselves.
Right.
So that's always what the Catholic Church, for instance, thought was the worst thing possible. We will tell you what the Spirit looks like, because we are the experts. And there's a certain wisdom to that. It has to be digested somehow. Now it's open. It's open to everyone. So that experience is possible.
And you can find confirmation.
That's right.
You know, if you're like, you know, I believe God only exists on Tuesdays, well, you can find a chat group. You'll find 50
Only on
people around
Tuesdays.
the world who are like, that's what I think too. That's what everybody else. Yeah. So, where before you would have to deal with your communal construct, your familial construct, now you can just find it.
Right.
And so, if 52 people around the world only believe God exists on Tuesdays, is it true? Well, if you're having an experience of it being true, then I guess it's true. But is it true? That true?
He is well aware that we all want to live within the unifying, everlasting gaze of a deity, quote, enchanted in the rapture of his sentimental sway. But the sheer pain in the world, the way people are used and discarded, argues against this for Corgan, and makes that a nightmare vision in any case. God is everlasting, but, in a cruel twist, his fascinations are fickle. He may as well not exist. He's not attentive, not wholly benevolent. He's like Ingmar Bergman's Arachnid, or Billy Corgan's parents. Here it is in its entirety.
To hold behold in the everlasting gaze, enchanted in the rapture of his sentimental sway. But underneath the wheels like the skulls of every cog, the fickle fascination of an everlasting God. You know I'm not dead, I'm just living in my head.
God is very gray.
If there is a God, I know he likes to rock. He likes his loud guitars and his spiders from Mars.
Note the satisfyingly subtly contradictory combo there of if and I know he does. Machina poses the challenge: can you accept the limits of your knowledge, or will you retreat into false certainties, back to the surface of things? On the final track of Machina 1, Glass says, without bitterness this time, "In my prayers I dream alone, silent speech to deaf ear. Still he prays, tolerating the uncertainty." In his book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, A Message for an Age of Anxiety, Alan Watts writes, "If we cling to belief in God, we cannot likewise have faith, since faith is not clinging but letting go. To put it still more plainly, the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing." Glass no longer claims to have seen everything, and in that open-endedness itself there is hope, air enough for life. He has the courage to accept that he doesn't understand his own life. Glass no longer feels the eye of the crowd which reflected back his false, simple social identity to be upon him. It is also an affirmation that the everlasting gaze of God is no longer felt. If God is felt, it is no longer as that ever-present grounding force. He may not know where he's going, but he's been transformed. He's no more the simple man. It seems a kind of desolation, yes, but he keeps moving, which means he's found a way to no longer live inside of his head. So, the true world of noumena exists fully beyond our senses, which means that interpersonal connection, even if we can drop our shields, may be impossible, since how can we trust what we see? Real love, or is it me you're after? You may get real love, but you won't get me. You'll recall that in early 2000, Billy Corgan solicited fans to write in with their interpretation of the story of Glass.
I have to explain somewhat the concept of the album, which of course I don't want to do because no one's got it right yet.
Consistently, fans stitched together plot lines involving an insane Glass, his drug-addicted lover, manipulating doctors, etc. But there is no story, I say. It's all in Glass's head. As are our own lives. I think that's the cruel joke of the Machina mystery. We can never really know each other. Therefore, we can never really solve the Machina mystery because we cannot understand Billy Corgan. And Billy Corgan knew it. Watch the interviews from that period. He seems quietly certain that people will not get the record.
If they didn't know you then, what makes you think they know you now? Vengeance is swift and sweet and sure, insecure.
Yet there is a small kind of hope for love if you can believe in heaven. For example, on Let Me Give the World to You, the big gushy one, it's the last chance to make believe, quote, it seems, and the distance between lovers only seems so far. Even when things seem lousy, that sense can't be trusted either. And the story can change if both lovers can believe.
The impossible
I was fascinated after pouring through Machina to see that the metaphysics is consistent throughout Pumpkins records. Belief is spoken of as the key thing, the thing that keeps the world turning, that holds together relationships against a blasted out landscape of childhood sorrows, and despite the falseness of the social world. For Corgan, the best, most ecstatic thing is a shared vision of that ultimately unknowable noumena, a Siamese dream. The Machina rulebook is in effect in 1993. There's just a more willfully naive hope behind the push for the shared dream. David Bowie did it in one album, Billy Corgan did it in 4. Siamese dream is the rise of Glass and the Machines of God. Machina is the fall. Thank you for listening.